Hello everyone, Nicholson here, and welcome to Coming Soon Movie News with Nicholson. I'm your host, and on this show we're going to be breaking down all of the day's movie news and kind of giving a little bit of background into what it all means for the production in general, such as casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, things like that. So, without any further ado, let's get into today's main topics. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was, over the weekend I went and saw the new movie that was released called Need for Speed. And a lot of people have asked me about the comparisons between that movie and the Fast and the Furious franchise. John Campea over at AMC Movie Talk put it perfectly, in my opinion. He said that it's not as good as Fast and Furious 5. It's not as good as Fast and Furious 6. But it is way better than Fast and Furious 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I will definitely agree with him on that front, because the thing about Fast and Furious 5 and 6, the reason that drew so many people, why so many people have reinvigorated that franchise, is because of the bombastic action sequences that movie takes place in. The fact that you can have two cars connected to a giant bank vault and dragging that through the city, smashing up the city and everything like that, that you can have a Formula One race car that is refitted with a ramp so that you can just drive in front of cars and flip them, like things like that. That's the reason why people go and see those movies. But the first four, they didn't have really anything special. They were cool, especially in their time. But the one thing that Need for Speed definitely does is everything in the movie, every single racing sequence, does not have any CGI whatsoever. Everything is done in camera. And when you're watching it, you really have to remember that, because there are some sequences in the movie where you feel that they must have added something in here. They must have added a car in here or there, because like there's certain scenes where he's literally power sliding through traffic, very tight traffic as well. But they did all of that in camera. Now, a lot of that is achieved with the camera placement, because you can make things seem as though they are a lot closer together by the way that you put where you put the camera. And so I feel that they did a really good job. Now remember, Need for Speed was directed by Scott Waugh, and Scott Waugh's last directorial effort, and it was his first feature film, was Act of Valor, the Navy SEAL movie from a couple of years ago. So you know that he has a deaf ear for action sequences. He knows how to film them. He knows how to do them real, as opposed to relying on CGI, which, when you watch this movie, you will be able to tell that this is real. You'll be able to notice the difference between seeing something real and seeing something CG, because everything in this movie is real. You get that tactile sense that something's actually there. And that was one of the things that I really, really enjoyed about the movie. Another thing that I really enjoyed, and this goes without saying, was Aaron Paul. I mean, going from Jesse Pinkman to this new character in Need for Speed, they're similar in terms of they are kind of troubled. They have dark pasts, you know, little characteristics like that. But they're very different people. And there's one sequence in the movie, and this was actually shown in the trailer, so this isn't a spoiler. I'm trying to avoid spoilers for this review. There's one sequence where he actually confronts Dominic Cooper's character, who's the guy who he's been looking for since the beginning of the movie, and he finds him like a little bit more than halfway through. And the sequence when he meets him, it reminded me of the Hunger Games Catching Fire. Remember the shot right at the very end of the movie where Katniss's face is just facing the camera, and she goes through, I believe she goes from being scared to being angry, and then to being just insane, like, and all just through looks. Like, everything was just all through look. Like, she was focused, and she was mad, and everything was just done through looks. And I felt that Aaron Paul really conveyed a lot of different emotions in this one sequence, and that's what really made me buy the character, which meant that I felt for the character, and I wanted him to succeed in what he was doing, and I felt about the people who he was with. It helps you relate to them a little bit better. And I felt that they did a really good job with that. The story could have been better, obviously, but that wasn't what they were going for. They didn't care whether or not the screenplay was Oscar-worthy or anything like that. The movie's called Need for Speed. It's not Need for let's sit around and talk. And they definitely get that, especially the couple of sequences in the cities and then the big race at the end. Everything was just spectacular, and I could feel my heart pumping as I was watching it, because you're really drawn in. They make you really feel as though you're there. The camera angles and things like that. It's a really well-made action film. Don't go based on what the critics say, because I read a lot of what some of the critics said, and I mean, to me, that doesn't affect my viewing experience of the movie, even though I know a lot about the backgrounds of these movies, and I know a lot about what it takes to make these films and the different types of films out there. But Need for Speed was not meant to be a critical success. It didn't need to be. It wanted to be a commercial success. It wanted to be fun, which it is. It's a fun movie. And that's all it needed to be. And I hate when critics come out and they trash movies like Need for Speed, or you look at even the reviews that the Transformers movies have gone. Regardless of the quality of the movie, it's fun, and that's what it's meant to be. I think one of the biggest things that I can remember about a movie just being lambasted by critics and it affecting the box office was The A-Team. I thought The A-Team was a phenomenally entertaining film. It didn't need to be a critical smash. It needed to be fun, it needed to be big, it needed to be explosive, and you needed to like the characters. All four of them they hit with that movie, and yet it still didn't do very well because the critics just crucified the movie. When you read the reviews, they were talking about how, you know, it didn't take itself seriously. It wasn't meant to take itself seriously. It was a fun movie. Same with Need for Speed. It's not Need for Speed kind of takes itself a little seriously. I will give them that. But you're still enjoying the movie, and there's still a couple of winks at the camera and a couple of sequences with Aaron Paul are really quite humorous, which is funny. It was great to see him kind of get out of the Jesse Pinkman character, the really dark, troubled character, and get into something a little bit more fun. My personal recommendation, if you like car racing movies, if you like practical effects and all those types of things, go and check out Need for Speed, because it is entertaining. In terms of a quality film, no, it's not a quality film, but it has quality action sequences in it, and I'm really intrigued to see where Scott Waugh takes his career from now. If Need for Speed, because Need for Speed didn't open very well domestically. It got, I think it opened in 3rd place, but internationally it's made a lot more money. I think it's made almost double what it made domestically internationally. So there is a possibility they could franchise this, and I think that was their intention. So if it makes enough money, we'll be able to see a Need for Speed 2. So hopefully we'll get some information on that within the coming months. So let's move on to the next topic. So this one here I touched on last episode, but I just wanted to, they actually came out and confirmed it, that the unannounced Marvel film that will be opening on May 6th, 2016 against Batman vs. Superman will indeed be Captain America 3. Still doesn't have a subtitle or anything like that, but we do know that the Russo brothers, Joe and Anthony Russo, are returning to direct. They directed Winter Soldier, which, from what I've been hearing, is phenomenal. It's getting unbelievably good word of mouth. And that movie opens up in, I believe, about 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm really looking forward to that, and the fact that the Russo brothers are coming back, the writers from the first two are coming back for the third one. You have Chris Evans, most likely Sebastian Stan, because they've announced, I don't know if I covered this before, but they did announce last week, or it came out at least, that Sebastian Stan, who played Bucky Barnes in Captain America and who plays the Winter Soldier in Captain America Winter Soldier, has signed in total a 9-film deal with Marvel. Now again, going back to what I've said before, the contracts don't mean that they are going to be in 9 films. They don't mean that if the studio decides not to make a Captain America 3 or 4 or 5, that those actors are obligated to receive the pay that they would have got on those movies. Doesn't mean anything like that. It means that if the studio goes ahead with the movie and they intend to use that character and want to use that actor, they are then obligated to appear in the movie. But it doesn't work the other way around. So it's a high likelihood that Bucky Barnes, Winter Soldier, will be appearing in Captain America 3 and future installments. They may even be gearing him up to be in other Avengers movies, which would be kind of intriguing. One rumor that's been going around, and it holds credence, but I don't think they would do it right now, is that, because in the comic books, I don't know if a lot of you know this, but in the comic books, Bucky Barnes actually took over the Captain America mantle when Steve Rogers died. And again, this was in the comics. So with him signing 9 films and Chris Evans only being signed for 6, a lot of people have said, well, that means that they're coming out with that. No. The reason that they signed him for a 9-film deal, and why they're most likely going to be doing that from now on, is because of the ordeal they went through with Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr., to the best of my knowledge, was signed on for 5 films. There would have been Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, Avengers, and Avengers 2. Yeah, he was signed on for 5 films. The cameos, apparently, from what I've read, the cameos do not count. So Chris Evans' cameo in Thor did not count towards his contractual obligations. Robert Downey Jr.'s cameo in The Incredible Hulk should not count towards his contractual obligations. So Marvel went through a big hassle re-signing Robert Downey Jr. They only got him for 2 more films, which we believe they are Avengers 2 and Avengers 3. So with signing all their new actors on, they're signing them for between 6 and 10 movies to ensure that they don't have to worry about re-signing them again or getting to the point where they have the sequel to their biggest movie that they've ever released and don't have their main bankable actor on contract for that. So if excuse me, if they don't sign these guys, then they'll run into that situation, and I can definitely see why they're doing it. So him being signed on for up to 9 films, and again, it's up to 9. It's not he's signed on for 9. It's up to 9. With him being signed on for that many, could they do it? Maybe. Will they do it? I don't know if they will. I've talked to a couple of people about this, and a lot of people seem to agree that they don't think that they would, just because of the star power of Chris Evans, but also building up a character like Captain America and then killing him off. It's not necessarily that. It's the same argument that comes up that with Spider-Man, people relate to Spider-Man as Peter Parker. They know Spider-Man as Peter Parker. They don't know him as what was it, Miles Morales, who's the new half black, half Latino. I believe that's who he is. He's the new Spider-Man. And then there's been a couple of other iterations of different people who have donned the Spider-Man costume. Same with Batman. People relate Batman to Bruce Wayne, not to Damian Wayne, who played Robin, I believe, became Batman later on, or Dick Grayson, who played Robin, who eventually took over the mantle of Batman for a short period. People relate to Batman as Bruce Wayne. Same with Captain America is Steve Rogers. So I don't think that they would, just because of name recognition alone. That might not confuse people, but they just won't see why they had to do that to move the story along, because then you're taking away what Captain America was. He wasn't this person. He was now a title. And so then he kind of becomes like a special agent at that point. And I don't think they're going to go that route. But them going head-to-head with Batman versus Superman, and Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel, coming out and saying that we're not moving, to me, looking at the pedigree of these movies, I think that Marvel needs to move. Oh, well, I mean, one of them needs to move, but Marvel would be stupid to not move. I mean, yes, the word of mouth coming off of Captain America 2 is really positive, and that may change people's opinions of Captain America 3 when it's coming out. But when you look at it against Batman versus Superman, like, this is a movie that people have been waiting literally decades for. They are idiots if they decide to keep that date and think that they're going to beat Batman versus Superman. They can't do it. They couldn't do it. Avengers 2 wouldn't open as well against Batman versus Superman, and they almost went head-to-head. They were only a few months apart. Now they're a year apart. But they would be just dumb to do that, because not only are they're going to crutch themselves for the amount that they can make that weekend. They're going to hurt Batman vs. Superman, which I'm sure they don't care about. But both movies are going to be affected by that, because it's the same target audience. The same people who are going to go see one movie are going to go see another. And the majority of people out there don't go and see more than one movie a week, if that. So saying that, oh, well, they'll just go see both of them. No, they wouldn't. In my personal opinion, I don't even think that opening up Star Wars Episode 7 against Batman vs. Superman would beat Batman vs. Superman. People have been waiting years and years and years and years and years for these two characters to match up. And so the anticipation level alone, even all of the things that have been happening behind the scenes that have become public, people are intrigued about this project, and the fact that so many people are going to want to go and see that over Captain America. If they're going to go on the same weekend, more than likely they're going to go see Batman vs. Superman before they see Captain America 3. That's just the way that, because they're going to be so curious. They've never seen that before. We've already seen Captain America. By that time, we'll have seen Captain America 2. We'll have seen Avengers 2. So we'll have seen Captain America now 4 times. We will have never once seen Batman and Superman on the screen at the same time, most likely fighting each other in one sequence and then pairing up to take on a massive baddie near the end. Marvel needs to move. If DC moves, then that's fine. One of them needs to move. But if they're going to play a game of chicken, Marvel needs to bow down, because they're not going to win. They're not going to have the pedigree that Batman vs. Superman will. Unless DC comes out with a couple of really terrible trailers and they just butcher the excitement level. They make the costume look stupid. They make the movie just look non-entertaining. That will deter a lot of people. And then Captain America, especially with the same creative team behind the second one coming back for the third one, that would then edge it out. But that would be the only reason why it would. So I hope that Marvel moves, because I don't want either of these movies to be affected, because if both these movies do really well, we're going to get more of those types of movies. That's the way that Hollywood works. The more money a movie makes, the more likely they are to make more of those movies. That's why when Alvin and the Chipmunks made a lot of money, they started coming out with all these family-friendly CGI movies that were just crap storylines. Like, you look at the spin-off of Cars, Planes, which was awful. Cars 2 wasn't the greatest. You look at the Smurfs. The Smurfs 2. Ugh. Now they're rebooting the Smurfs as a fully CGI animated movie that's going to be coming out, I believe, in 2016. So these movies make money, so they make more of them. Stop going to see those movies. They're not good. And when they're not good, you don't want to tell Hollywood that you want more of that. You want more quality filmmaking. You want more entertaining filmmaking. You want more of things that are actually going to cause you to go to the movies. Not go to the movies and then complain about the $10 that you had to spend or the $15 you had to spend for that ticket because the movie was garbage. You're telling Hollywood that you like these movies. Why do you think Adam Sandler comes out with a new movie every year or two? Because even those movies are garbage, they make a lot of money because people just want to go and see them. So there is a place for a dumb movie here and there, but don't make that your shtick. Don't make that your, oh, we got DreamWorks Animations coming out with a movie that's not How to Train Your Dragon, so it's going to be terrible. You know, or Sony ImageWorks is going to be coming out with a new Smurfs movie, and you shudder at that just because you know the quality of the other two films. And I really hope that they don't. I really hope that people are more conscious about that, about going to see specific types of movies because they're entertaining, and actually purchasing them and not pirating them and downloading them. Or if you do that kind of stuff, at least support what you're watching. If you watched it and you enjoyed it, go and see it, or at least rent it when it comes out, or get a Netflix account, because Netflix, those companies get money from Netflix. So at least try to support those movies, because that means that we're going to get more of them. But enough with my rant. Let's move on to the next piece of news. And so this one came out, and it wasn't really that much of a surprise, but Mark Webb, the director of The Amazing Spider-Man and the upcoming Amazing Spider-Man 2, who is said a couple of weeks ago that he's coming back to do Amazing Spider-Man 3, he has now come out and stated that he will not be directing Amazing Spider-Man 4, which will be coming out in 2018. He said that he would like to be a consultant on the project, but in terms of directing, he wants to step away, which I think is a really good decision. A lot of people draw comparisons to the original Spider-Man trilogy as opposed to this one, and one major difference applies. The original Spider-Man trilogy, they did each movie separately. They did each movie on their own. They never had an overarching storyline that they needed to complete outside of just where they wanted Peter Parker's journey to go. But outside of that, they had no intention of using specific villains or anything of that sort until they actually started developing the next movie. The difference with this project is that not only do we have Spider-Man 2, 3, and 4, we also have a Venom movie and a Sinister Six movie, and most likely a Black Cat movie later on. We're probably going to see a Kraven the Hunter movie. I would love to see a Mysterio movie. I think that has a lot of potential, but that'd be very expensive. But it's a very cohesive universe. They've written the overarching storyline for all of these films already. You know, Spider-Man 2, 3, and 4, the stories for them were written at the same time because they got Robert Orci and Alex Kurtzman to come in and do the treatments for them. So those movies have an overarching storyline. There's going to be a through line through them where they were all incepted at the same time. They were all created, or their ideas were all generated at the same time. So they know where these movies are going to go. A lot of people are saying, well, Spider-Man 2, or Amazing Spider-Man 2, looks a lot like Spider-Man 3 in terms of there's too many villains, they're going to just screw everything up, and I don't feel that that's the case at all. First off, we know now that Rhino only has about 4 minutes of screen time, because Paul Giamatti came out about 6 months ago or so in an interview and stated that they were setting up his character to be larger in the third movie. So Rhino is probably going to be the main protagonist, or Rhino and Doc Ock, I'm assuming, are going to be the main protagonists in Spider-Man 3. And then we're probably going to get a lead into Venom, which is going to spin off into the Venom movie. And then in Amazing Spider-Man 4, it's going to be the Vulture, and probably another villain that they haven't unveiled yet, most likely Mysterio. I'm hoping for Mysterio. But if that's the case, if they go that route, then that's leading into Sinister Six. And that's where we'll get all of the team up. But I think Rhino is going to be a main protagonist in Spider-Man 3. So right there removes one of the 3 major villains in the movie. So now we have Electro and Green Goblin. Electro has been stated to be the main villain throughout the movie. So he's going to have the creation at the beginning or near the beginning of the movie and then evolve throughout the film until his final showdown with Spider-Man near the end. And the Green Goblin most likely will be created about halfway through because Harry Osborn does work with Electro. They've shown that in the trailers. They've shown that in a couple of the images that have been released. So we know those guys are working together in some fashion. We don't know how, but we know that they are working together. So with there being one major villain, another big villain near the end, or more so towards the end, and one villain most likely near the beginning or somewhere early on in the film, it's not going to be the convoluted mess that Spider-Man 3 was, because that was studio intervention at that point. Sam Raimi and his brother Ivan had the script done. They had Sandman as the main villain and the Green Goblin 2 coming in near the end. And the studio said, no, we want Venom. Venom, we've always intended for Venom to be in the third film. We've always wanted him to be the main protagonist, so he was kind of shoehorned in. If you watch the movie, if you could do a crazy fan edit, or anyone out there could do a crazy fan edit, and remove all of the sequences with Topher Grace's character, except for maybe if he's just a little background character, it's a completely different movie. It's very... Oh, and also remove that stupid dancing sequence when he's walking down the street. That was just terrible. That was just terrible. If you remove all those sequences from the movie, it's a very well-made movie, and it's a fitting end to that movie, or that trilogy, I should say. But I feel that first off, I don't feel that they should have had Sandman in that movie. Not a lot of people are very familiar with Sandman. I don't feel that he's a very compelling villain, especially in this movie. He was the most tragic out of all the villains. I never really felt that he was doing, or he never felt that he was doing anything wrong, and he was forced. He almost felt forced to do everything that he was doing. So I never really felt that he was a villain per se, and that really let me down for that movie. Well, there were a lot of things that let me down about that movie, but that I feel was one of the biggest kind of hits against it. And with this through line being put in with Amazing Spider-Man 1 through 4, and then the spin-off movies, with Mark Webb deciding to take a break from it and deciding to step away, that to me boasts very well for the continuity of the series, because you're going to get a fresh take on it. It's going to still be within the same universe, but you're going to get a fresh eye, a fresh take. You're not going to get somebody who, quote-unquote, gets stale in the same creative pool, if you will. So with him coming out, with him going out and saying that I'm not doing number 4, but I'd like to stay on as producer and a consultant, that bodes well, because then he can say, well, no, this is the flavor of the movie that I tried to do with the other one, so we want to keep it kind of the same, but you can influence the movie the way that you see fit, as long as you keep these main key parts. But one little snag with this too is that Andrew Garfield has stated, I think I talked about this on an earlier episode, but Andrew Garfield has come out and stated that he's only signed on for 3. He's not signed on for the 4th one, and he might not sign on for the 4th. I mean, money always talks. They could offer him $50 million and do it. I don't think that they will, but they could offer him an obscene amount of money, and he could come back for the 4th one. But if they don't get him back and they have to recast, they're not going to reboot it. They've already stated they're not going to reboot it. They're probably going to do what Marvel's doing right now and take what's the quote-unquote James Bond approach. Which is, you don't actually reboot the character, you just change the actor and continue on as though nothing's changed. If they go that route, it may be a little jarring, especially if they go to try to get someone who looks like Andrew Garfield. That may be a little bit jarring, because then you're like, well, why didn't you just get Andrew Garfield back? I don't get it. But with them coming out and saying that he may not be coming back in the 4th one, we still don't know that. Other than that quick little interview he did 6-8 months ago or so, I can't exactly remember. He stated that he's only signed on for 3. He never said he's not doing 4. He just said he's only signed for 3. So with Mark Webb leaving after 3, possibly Andrew Garfield leaving after 3, they're not going to reboot it, but we may get a quote-unquote quiet reboot with that, where they're going to keep the same continuity, but they're going to change out the direction, they're going to change out the actor. But only time will tell. I mean, this is a long way away. We have Amazing Spider-Man 2 hitting on May 2nd. We have Amazing Spider-Man 3 being done by Mark Webb, starring Andrew Garfield, coming out in June 10th, 2016. We have to wait until May 4th, 2018 before we'll get the 4th movie. So we still got well over 4 years. It's a lot of time. A lot of time that they got. So let's move on to the next topic, and this one is actually really intriguing because there's been almost more information revealed about this film than its predecessor, which isn't even out yet. But Bryan Singer spoke to Total Film, which is one of the film websites out there, and revealed that X-Men Apocalypse, which is the movie that's going to be following X-Men Days of Future Past. Future Past opens up on May 23rd, and then X-Men Apocalypse is going to be opening up, I believe, May 16th, 2016. So 2016 is looking to be a big year now, too. A lot of movies are just pushing themselves off to that. But he came out and said that Apocalypse is going to be set in the 80s, or take place in the 80s, and it's going to deal with the origins of, or the notion of ancient mutants, or mutants that lived thousands of years ago, who were born and existed and then eventually died. Now, the one thing, if a lot of you remember, at the beginning of the first X-Men movie, they were talking about how there was a sudden shift with genetics, and how mutants were starting to come out and people were starting to see that they had all these differences with them and all these kind of powers. So if they go back and they say that, well, no, actually mutants existed thousands of years ago, then how do they explain that unless it's a genetic lull where nothing really happens and then boom, it happens? I really don't know. They haven't explained that yet, and that's going against the continuity that they've already stated that they're going to try to fix from X-Men 3. So, but the film will also have the most mass destruction out of any of the previous X-Men films. And the reason is because obviously the title is Apocalypse. You have the character called Apocalypse whose sole purpose it is to just destroy things. So the amount of destruction that's going to be in this movie, I think, is going to probably parallel to Man of Steel or Pacific Rim. Because they're going to have everyone going after this guy. And I think this is going to be kind of one that ends a lot of the X-Men characters that we're familiar with right now, but then a lot of the original ones that we know about are going to be introduced. Because he did say that we're going to see some familiar X-Men characters, but they're going to be younger versions in a younger time. So, but speaking of X-Men Days of Future, actually no, I'll wait till the end of the video for this. But with Apocalypse coming out, and there actually being almost more information about that film than Days of Future Past, a lot of people have speculated that it's going to be just the first class case, or the first class cast, which I think is evident by this, by them coming out and stating that it's going to be set in the 80s, which is going to be about 15, 20 years before the original X-Men movie. I think when he means we're going to see familiar characters in a younger time, we're going to see a young Storm, we're going to see a young, why am I drawing a blank on the name? Young Cyclops. We're going to see a young Jean Grey. I have a feeling this is going to be the first X-Men film that's not going to have Wolverine. Because the one reason why Wolverine can be introduced in Days of Future Past, yet not remember characters like Professor X and Magneto and all that, is because in Days of Future Past, the future Wolverine's consciousness is sent back to 1970s Wolverine. So even though Wolverine's walking around in the 1970s, he's actually, in his head, his consciousness is from the future. So them having to worry about saying, well, Wolverine never knew these guys before the first X-Men movie. That's how. So that most likely means that if X-Men Apocalypse is set in the 80s, Wolverine will not be in the film. And that'll be the first time that we have an X-Men movie without Wolverine. Even X-Men First Class had a cameo by Wolverine. And I don't think they're going to do that again, because that's just retreading the same tropes that you tried on previous films. So I don't think they're going to do that. But I'm getting really intrigued about Apocalypse. I've been waiting for the Apocalypse storyline for a long time. Days of Future Past was another one, and they're making that, and now they're making Apocalypse. Like, where can they go from here? Laura Schuler-Donner came out a while ago and stated that we're not just thinking, we're not just thinking about Apocalypse and then that's it. They have plans past Apocalypse, which is really intriguing, and that actually leads me into my next topic. James Mangold, who directed last year's X-Men, or sorry, The Wolverine, has come out to Twitter. He was actually asked on Twitter by just a random person, not one of his friends or anything like that, just asked him, hey, what's the status of X-Men Apocalypse? Or what's the status of the new Wolverine movie? Are you filming it? Is it going to come out after X-Men Apocalypse? What's the deal? And so he actually came out and responded back to the tweet and said, actually, we're figuring all that stuff out right now. We don't quite know exactly, but we know that we are going to shoot it after X-Men Apocalypse. Now, the one thing that is kind of on the back of people's minds right now is Hugh Jackman's not contracted to appear in Wolverine anymore. I believe Days of Future Past was his last contractual obligation to appear. And so he's come out and said that if the script is good, then he'll come back and do it. But if they're planning on doing a sequel to The Wolverine, which is the one that was set in Japan, they have to have Hugh Jackman. You can't recast that role, at least not in that continuity. If you want to recast it, you're going to reboot it entirely. You don't do a sequel with changing out the actor. You reboot at that point. So they're trying to continue on that storyline that they introduced in The Wolverine and go further. Hugh Jackman has to come back, but that means that they have to make the script amazing. With James Mangold coming back to direct it, I think that's got a really good hand in the pot. I think that he can do a lot with that, and he has a lot of influence. And I believe John Logan, who wrote the first The Wolverine, is back to write this one as well. So the same creative team, same with Captain America, same creative team is going to be behind the next installment of that That's secular franchise. So that gives me a little bit of hope, but with the fact that Hugh Jackman is still not signed and the fact that they might not be able to get him, that could squash this movie real quick and change it into a reboot of the character. If they're going to reboot it, I would say wait until the current X-Men universe is done and then go back and reboot it and reboot everybody. Because at that point you can start fresh, you can change things that you might have done incorrectly or wanted to do but never got the chance to in the previous films. Due to technological reasons or the budget not being high enough. I know that there were things that they put in X2 that were originally going to be in X-Men, the original X-Men, but they couldn't do because of budget. The studio didn't know. It was untested at that time. Remember, X-Men was the one that started almost this entire superhero trend. X-Men came out. It was really well done. That got Spider-Man greenlit. Spider-Man came out. That excelled even more. Then X2 came out. And this was year after year after year. There were not really any gaps between these. When X2 came out and did really well, and then Spider-Man 2 came out in 2004, that's what kind of sealed the superhero movies are here to stay. Because you could see the quality of filmmaking, the quality of storytelling, the actors who were interested in it. Because that was a lot of the hindrance in the past, was there weren't a lot of people who were interested in doing these movies because they felt they were kind of hokey. They felt they were jokes, they were silly, they were, it's a comic book movie. Comic books are not taken seriously. Nowadays it's a very different world when it comes to that. But with everything that they're trying to figure out, it does likely mean if they're going to be filming this and it's going to be coming out after X-Men Apocalypse, we're probably waiting until at least 2017, 2018 before we see the new Wolverine movie, which is 4 years away, and Hugh Jackman's not getting any younger. I mean, it's becoming increasingly difficult for him to keep in that shape, and he doesn't stay in that shape all the time. Do you realize what he has to go through to get to look like that? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. So for him to always keep in shape like that, and especially as he gets older, it's going to be more difficult. If they do a sequel to the Wolverine with Hugh Jackman, I do believe that will be the last time. But I wouldn't place any bets on whether or not Days of Future Past would be the last time that we see him. It could be very likely could be that that'll be the last time we see Wolverine as played by Hugh Jackman on the screen. So I'm really looking forward to Days of Future Past. I think it's going to be awesome. But with the Wolverine coming out last year, and on my initial viewing, I didn't quite like it. But then I saw the director's cut when it came out on Blu-ray, and they added an entire action sequence, which was in the trailers, which is the one sequence I was really looking forward to the most, which was him fighting a whole bunch of ninjas. And they cut that scene right out, and when you watch the director's cut, you find out why. And it's because that movie would have received an R rating if that scene had been left in, which I would have been fine with, but the studio wanted it to be PG-13 so that they could get as many people as possible to go and see it, which is another problem that I have with Fox. They do that with every movie. They did that with Alien vs. Predator. They did that with Die Hard 4. They've done it with a lot of franchises where they've taken an R-rated basing and they put a PG-13 just to be able to get more people. But you're sacrificing the quality of your product when you do that, just to get more people to see it. And that sacrifices the brand, which is one of the reasons why when A Good Day to Die Hard came out, it didn't do very well. Not to mention it was a pile of crap, but it just didn't do very well because people had already been worried about the last version. So. But I have two more little announcements to make. The first one is there's going to be a new trailer, another trailer for Amazing Spider-Man 2 coming out this week, and this is supposedly the final trailer. I'll believe that when I see it. So I don't know if this is going to have a lot of new footage. You can compile all of the trailers and watch the movie. They've shown so much footage from this. But for the show, I will be watching the trailer. I will be reviewing it when it comes out. And as far as I'm aware, it should be 2 days, 1 day. Thursday is most likely when it's going to premiere. So it'll either be Wednesday or Thursday that the trailer comes on, which means that on Thursday or on either Wednesday show or Friday show, I will be covering that. But the one I'm really excited for, which comes out next Monday, is the first full trailer. Not a teaser, it's a full trailer for X-Men Days of Future Past, where we actually get to see some real footage from it. The teaser that came out a while ago, it hardly had any special effects finished. As far as I'm aware, and I believe I did read this online, that the trailer that was released around Christmas, or just before Christmas time, was almost identical to the footage that was shown at Comic-Con. Which explains why there wouldn't have been a lot of CG, because they weren't very far into filming. They were only about, I think, 40 or 50% of the way through filming, which means that the shots didn't have finalized graphics. They just had template backgrounds, not finalized or anything of that sort. So I am so looking forward to that. I want to see some footage from this movie because Rotten Tomatoes did a poll, and it has been deemed the #1 most anticipated movie of the summer. More so than Captain America, more so than Guardians of the Galaxy, more so than Spider-Man, more so than Godzilla. You look at all these major, more so than Transformers 4, more so than all these films, the new X-Men movie is tracking higher. More people are anticipating and seeing it. So releasing the first real footage of the movie next week so we get a really good idea of the movie. I hope we're going to see the Sentinels. I hope they're not going to pull a Warner Brothers and hide the main draw of the movie from the actual advertising. But when we see the first trailer, I will be reviewing it on the show. So make sure you guys check back for that. Well, that'll about do it for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Nicholson. Thank you guys so much for joining, and don't forget to click the subscribe button, which you can see on the screen. And also, don't forget to add me on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Nicholson, Niklsun, to follow all your movie news. Whenever it's announced, I will be tweeting about it. And just to reinforce, as of last week, I did announce that I'm going to be changing up the schedule of the show. I will now be doing 3 episodes a week. I will be doing an episode Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So make sure you guys check back every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the new episodes, and also follow me on Twitter because I will be posting when the new episodes come up, but also whenever new movie news comes out, I will be tweeting about it. And don't be afraid to tweet me if you guys know any movie news that I may have missed, or have a comment or a topic or anything like that that you would like me to talk about on the show. Eventually I will be getting some co-hosts in, so this will be more of a discussion show. But for right now, it's just going to be me talking about what I know about it, if I've heard anything, if I know any movement on any of these projects. But don't be afraid to leave a comment in the comment section, or shoot me a tweet, and just ask me a question, and I will try to address it on the show. So without any further ado, thank you guys so much for watching. You guys have been great. I'm Nicholson, and you take care.